Jason Bradshaw, my man, welcome to the Human to Human podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
I'm fantastic and delighted to be with you and hopefully with many of you listeners today.
And thank you for accommodating the time zone difference. You're in Australia, I'm in Ontario. It's 4 p.m. for me and 7 a.m. for you. How you feeling today?
Well, it's Friday here in Sydney, so getting up early on the last day of the so-called working week is not a terrible thing. Let's get into that weekend faster, I say.
Oh man, that's awesome. There's so many incredible things I want to talk to you about. I know you're all about customer experience. Experience is everything to you, customer and employee experiences. Before we dive into all of that though, give me a little bit of context as to who Jason is today and what brought you here.
Yeah, so let's start with what brought me to here and to 2020, I guess. But at 14 years of age, I started my first business selling a range of telecommunications and computer equipment. That might sound like I was an entrepreneur by birth, but the reality was I just wanted the latest and shiniest gadgets, and I had to find a way to fund them. And the bank of mum and dad had some limits, so I started selling telecommunications and computer equipment. And I was interviewed on A Current Affair and other coast-to-coast shows at the time. And what I said was going to differentiate me from everyone else. And remember, I was 14 years of age. Was customer service. I said I couldn't compete on price, but I could compete on service. And now, many years later, I think I've proven time and time again, as has others, that the power of the experience that you deliver really leads to business growth. So right now, as I speak to you, I'm the Chief Customer and Marketing Officer at Volkswagen Group Australia. Also the author of It's All About CEX, that's CEX, the Essential Guide to Customer Employee Experience. And if that's not keeping me busy enough, I also work with companies around the world to help them improve the lives of customers and employees, because ultimately that's what I'm passionate about. It's why I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to talk to people about the importance of it.
What was it about customer success at that age? I love that you said it wasn't that you wanted to compete on price or anything like that, but there was something about the customer service where you knew you could outshine. But at that age of 14, what was it that drew you to that?
So I, for many years, had been reading small business magazines, books by Tom Peters. I can remember my very first purchase on Amazon. And Amazon only officially came to Australia a couple of years ago. So I was buying off Amazon US, but nonetheless, Postal Service knew where we were. My very first book on Amazon was actually not a book. It was an audio cassette tape, I'm showing my age, of Tom Peters reading In Pursuit of Wow. And I had always had an interest in business. My parents always had a side hustle. My grandparents owned their own businesses. So I was always interested in business. And so I'd been reading magazines and books or audio tapes from people like Tom Peters. And I guess from that, I understood that customer service could be a differentiator. But I also absolutely knew that as this pimply 14-year-old kid in rural Australia, there was no way I was going to be able to compete with, the Dells of the time. The only thing I could control in reality was how I served people. And I remember quite fondly getting, people questioning whether I was going to be able to serve their needs. I sold a massive deal, even by today's standards, a massive deal to a retailer in the area that I worked in. They were the largest paint distributors, wholesale and retail distributors of paint and associated products. And I replaced all of their point of sale software, their accounting software. I'm a 14-year-old kid. Now, most organizations today would still have loved to have won that deal. And the only way I could do it was about proving that I could deliver service. So when they had questions about the accounting software, I wasn't the guy to answer them. I was 14, just show me the money. It was about, making sure I connected them with people that could convince them that it was the right piece of software for them.
What was your unique advantage? What was your secret weapon to convince and prove that you could outcare everyone else? You could outservice everyone else?
I think whether you want to use the word hustle or tenacity, I don't know which one suits the conversation better, but really that I was just not prepared to let go. A dog with a bone, if you like. And if they asked a question, it wasn't just about making sure I answered it quickly, but that I gave them more than they thought that they needed. Now at 14, I'm not some Einstein. It was about doing what you had to do. But if I think about the point of sale software deal that I did, I wouldn't just say, here's the point of sale software. It was, okay, so you're going to have to be able to print receipts, right? So the best printer to go with that point of sale software is this, and this is the 3 reasons why. So it was always about thinking about that next step and not being afraid to connect them with people that knew more than me. Now, my job was to facilitate the solution to their problem, not to be the smartest person in the room. And I think today it's exactly the same. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you have to be the one that has the solutions to get things done. And that's the approach that I took at 14. It's the approach that I took at 20, when I started a domestic and commercial cleaning business. Now, there's nothing more humbling than having a team member call in sick and you having to go and scrub the toilets, the male toilets, at a warehouse that I don't think had seen a cleaner in the previous 10 years. But that's what you do as an entrepreneur. And there were loads of missteps along the way, right? First, second, third businesses. You learn a lot, and a lot of that learning comes through failing. And then I've spent a large portion of my adult life in corporate world, working for companies like Target and Volkswagen, and down here, companies like Telstra, which your listeners probably aren't familiar with, but it's Australia's largest telecommunications company. I worked for their largest competitor as well. I had a stint in government. I had 3 years to try and put the people into government. That was 3 telling years. But in all of that, and this is the thing that people don't necessarily understand or realize about customer experience, is it doesn't matter whether it's telecommunications or banking or automotive, or when I'm a solopreneur, when I just moved to New York and I was a solopreneur consulting and doing coaching to young executives, it's the customer experience that creates the memories that people talk about. The fridge that I have in my kitchen, I know the brand of it, but I couldn't tell you any of the features. But I could absolutely tell you that at 11 p.m. at night, when I went online to buy a new fridge because my fridge had just blown up, that there was someone at the end of a chat system that could arrange for a replacement fridge to come the next day. And I keep going back to that retailer because I trust the experience, and I tell people to use them because of how they made me feel. The product is just that. It's just the product. It's important. You've got to consider it, and you're going to have challenges if your product breaks down all the time. But it's the experience that people talk and ultimately leads to repeat and referral business.
I love where this conversation is headed. This is exactly where I thought we were going to be. And I think that example, and given that you prefaced it with, it doesn't really matter the product, the service, the industry, whether it's e-commerce or whether it's services, I would say, Jason, the large majority of the listeners are definitely, I would say, service heavy. Solopreneurs, business owners, more SaaS, services, audiovisual, coaching, human resources, things of that nature. But from a customer experience perspective, somebody listening to this is saying, all right, Jason, I get it. I know customer experience is important. I know I could be doing better. Are there ways, tactics, simple methodologies that you have that could help them create a customer experience just to get their ball rolling?
Yeah. So in my book, question that I posed to people, and the reason I wrote my book was because I felt, and I still feel, that people needed to know that customer experience isn't about being in a room creating a strategy for 3 years. It's something that with intentionality, you can start improving today. And so the very first thing that I'd ask your listeners to think about and then answer is this question: what is my customer or employee promise? What am I promising to deliver? And am I prepared to make that promise public? So imagine FedEx. They don't say absolutely, positively, when you need to get it there sometime. Could you imagine how many people would use FedEx if that was their promise?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if their promise was, we're cheap and nasty, but the package will get there, they would have people that would use them. But that's not where they position themselves in the world. It's when it absolutely has to be overnight, you use FedEx. And so when it's not there overnight, they've broken the promise. And because they've made it publicly, they have to live up to it. They have to remedy it. And so my very first challenge to your listeners is define what you're promising to customers and be prepared to openly talk about it with your customers. Yes, some customers won't like it and you might lose them, but there'll be a pile of customers that go, that promise is for me. That's what I want. People still use the US Postal Service, the Canadian Postal Service, the Australian Postal Service. I would argue that they're not necessarily known or loved for how quick they get your parcels places, but people still use them, right? Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid of your promise, but know what it is. And that's the first thing that I think stops companies from creating raving fans, is that they're just inconsistent because they don't know what it is they promise to deliver. And then once you know what you're going to deliver, what you're promising, then you have to measure your performance against it. And we could probably talk for hours about net promoter score or customer effort score or customer satisfaction. The metric does not matter. What matters is the data that the metric gives you, so that every single day you can go, if I just do this one thing, I'll be better than I was yesterday. Mm. And that it's that intentionality to just be better every single day at achieving the promise. I could be a better chocolate eater every day, but that's not going to help me lose weight, right? So you have to have intentionality. You have to know, though, what you're being intentional about.
Yeah, I totally agree on the intentionality. And it's very easy for a customer to see if the intention is not in their favor. If they're being presented a solution or an experience with a catch or with something in it for the business. It's like when a business sends you, a Christmas gift, but it's their coffee mug with their company logo. Mm-hmm. Is it really about the customer, or is it just marketing?
Yeah, a good friend of mine, John Rulin, wrote a book called Giftology.
Yeah, actually, he'll be on the podcast next month.
Oh, fantastic. I would absolutely recommend people listen to that episode. John's an absolutely awesome guy. And he'd probably tell you to tell your listeners to stop sending Christmas gifts.
His book is amazing. Yeah.
But, it is about thinking everything through. Is sending the customer a branded water bottle the right thing to do, or is it just sending them a water bottle? And then I would ask the question, is the water bottle aligned with the intent, with the purpose, with the promise of your organization? There's a company, I won't mention them. I know the founder, I respect them. I know that they were coming from a good place, but they're currently holding a major online event. And in the lead up to the event, as part of my registration, I got asked to redeem a coupon to get my free gift. Well, I redeemed the coupon and surprise, surprise, I won a free gift. And they then said that they're FedExing it to me. Now, I'm in Australia. They're based in California. FedExing me a gift is not going to be cheap. And it was time so it would arrive at the start of their conference. And I'm like, these guys are nailing it. They can't do their in-person event anymore, but they're absolutely nailing it. They're making sure I get this gift, whatever it is, just before the event starts, building hype and excitement. I don't know what it is, so that adds some extra excitement to it. The gift arrives the morning of the event. My husband was probably getting sick and tired of me telling him about, I don't know what it is that's coming. Now, I didn't expect it to be diamonds or gold bars, right? But I did expect it to be something wow-worthy, something aligned with everything this company had been promising, either directly or indirectly through their actions. And it arrived, and it was a cap with their logo on it, some discount coupons to their sponsors, and I actually can't even remember if anything else was in it. But it was in. It's not this. It's not. It was in a good box, a good sized box. It was half empty. They paid to ship air, and they built up these massive expectations to give me a cap. Like, I'm sorry, just tell me I can have a cap for free, and if I want it, I can click ship. If I don't, donate it to someone that wants it. It's someone in their events team absolutely thought they were doing the right thing. But I would argue that that person wasn't aligned, or at least perhaps didn't understand what their full promise of either the event or the customer, their customer journey is in general. The Ritz-Carlton are really intentional around customer experience. They have a credo card, is what they call it. And I've worked with some other organizations to create something called a pocket card. So basically the credo card, the Ritz-Carlton credo card in a different packages. And I think any company can do this. But the power isn't in the card. The power isn't in having someone put it in their pants every day or their jacket every day. It's about what's on the card. Defining the promise to your customers and then distilling it into 2 or 3, no more than 5 things that everyone's expected to do. And if they do those things, then you'll achieve the promise. That's step 1. Step 2, and Ritz-Carlton are fanatical about this. At the start of every shift, at every Ritz-Carlton around the world, every lady and gentleman of the Ritz-Carlton focuses on one part of their promise. Now, today, just before this podcast, I learned that the Ritz-Carlton in Marina del Rey, California, was 30 years old. It's never closed since the day that they opened, which is phenomenal given the current situation. For 30 years, every single day, multiple times a day, they've taken essentially the same credo card with the same customer promise, their same employee promise on that as well, and their steps of service, and looked at one of those. They have team members that have been there since day one. Those team members have probably heard those promises 300, 400, 500 times. But they do it because they know that it's about everyone being crystal clear about what it is that they're going to deliver to their guests. And you can be a solopreneur, or you can have a team of 50 or a team of 1,000. If you don't know what it is that you're going to promise, and if you don't distill it into something really simple, how do you know that you're going to achieve it? At Facebook, whether you love Facebook or not, Facebook fame, in the Facebook movie, Zuckerberg, the actor playing Zuckerberg in the Facebook movie, talks very passionately in one scene about the importance of the site not going down. And all that you need to see is for Facebook to go down for 5 minutes, and suddenly every news outlet in the world is going, the world is ending. Facebook is not working, and people are, distraught. Now, there's distraught because the promise is broken, and maybe a little bit too much love for a particular software platform. But, as a SaaS company, as a services company, we make promises to our customers that they become to rely on. If you're not being intentional about how you're delivering on that promise, then servers go down, and they go down for a long time, and people don't care. But if you are intentional and you focus your team on it every day, then you can't help but get better. Weight Watchers doesn't ask you to count calories because it's fun. They know that if they keep top of mind that calories matter, you will lose weight as long as you're eating the right calories, right? It's the same with customer experience. Top of mind, it gets better.
There's so much gold, Jason, what you just dropped. For anyone listening to this right now, I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to the last 10 minutes or so, all the way from the event company sending you a cap, because, hey, look, if it's one thing that Jason needs more of, it's a cap with our logo on it. So, I mean, and the intention, I understand the intention. They want a gift. It's part of the experience. It's part of the event. Totally get that. But then when you hand that off to somebody where it's a to-do list, or it's just a task to get done, to ship out a bunch of hats to all the registrations with the wrong intentionality, you're also building the hype for someone like you who's literally on the other side of the world waiting for this event. Likely it's a paid event, and it's unfortunate what that experience does to you as a user, even though that 50% of their intentions were positive and like they were trying to do the right thing by sending their clients a gift. I get it. But being the receiver of the gift and the hype and what it stood for, and then the disappointment, I mean, I would be surprised if that cap is still in your home, or maybe it's already gone somewhere.
I don't think it's far from being somewhere else. But someone probably said, and I haven't asked the question because the founder's busy at the moment, but someone probably said in their company, well, every year when we do this event, we have caps. So let's have caps.
Right.
As opposed to what's going to enhance the experience right now. Earlier this year, I did a online course. It was called the Virtual Event on Virtual Events. It was basically a multi-day online course around how to create and host an online event. Mm-hmm. And I signed up for the VIP package. I love paying extra to be called a VIP, but I signed up to the VIP package because of some of the extra inclusions you got. Before the event started, I too got a box of material from them. Yes, it had a water bottle in it. Yes, it had a cap in it, and it was all branded. But the really cool thing about that box of materials that turned up was the intentionality behind it. Again, they made sure it arrived before the event started. But if you take out the water bottle, you take out the cap, they also had some little sugar tubes. They had some candy. They had a cocktail making kit. They had a notepad. They had a whole range of different things that were designed for you to interact with the event. So now they had these emoji reaction paddle pop sticks. So you could hold it up
really
on
cool.
Zoom to go, you're loving it, you're hating it, or what have you. They had a door hanger, which was a bit corny. It said, shush, I'm trying to make millions, right? But again, it was about that intentionality of how can I create an experience virtually? Mm-hmm. How can I bring those two worlds together? Now, I don't think anyone in the world needs more swag. If you go to one conference a year, you've got more than enough swag. But the intentionality behind this box and how they tied it in to what they were doing added value. It became a talking point. I've sat it down and gave it to my executive assistant and said, what can we learn from this for even our in-person events that I get to host and she manages for me? So it's not about swag's bad. It's about the intention behind it. It's about what are they trying to enhance by doing it. It's like companies that put in chatbots on their website. They can be great and they can also be bad, but what's the purpose for it? How do you? I was challenged once. I was sitting on a panel at a conference in the days when we could have people in the same space, and there was me and two people from the banking industry. and they worked for the same bank but different brands within the bank. And they were loving on chatbots. They said they were the most amazing things. And I said that I completely disagree. And of course, that created some nice tension and gave the audience a bit of flair.
Which is always good.
Yeah, if you want to use a chatbot, what's the purpose behind it? And if the only purpose is to have less team members, then I think that's wrong. But if your purpose is to help customers to get the right answer quickly for low impact, low value things, great. If I need to find my Swift code for my bank, I don't necessarily need to sit on a phone to find that out. I'm happy to self-serve for that. But if I'm about to take out $1 million loan with your bank, I don't want a chatbot. And I would argue most people don't. And my challenge is have that low value item in chat. But if the moment the chat starts to get into a high value item, have you thought about how you switch that person across to a real agent, how that experience is? Quite often in multiple industries, it goes from, I need to connect you to a human. And then you sit in another queue.
Right.
No, sorry, guys. You don't tell me your chatbot's intelligent. You should have known 5 minutes ago that you were about to put me to an agent. So it's that, don't be afraid to do something, but do it with intention. And think about the step after the customer first interacts. Now, the other thing I'd say about intentionality is don't promise something you can't deliver. FedEx does deliver overnight. There's an airline here in Australia, and they started a whole campaign before they went bankrupt because of the pandemic, not because of their campaign. But their whole campaign was that they were going to make flying joyfully simple. That's a great promise. But how about getting my luggage on time and taking off on time? And if you're going to offer me an airline lounge, make sure there's seats for everybody and not just the people that got there 2 hours before their flight. Joyfully simple is a big ask for an airline. But if you're going to say it, you need to be able to deliver on it. Think about Southwest Airline or other airlines like them. They don't go out and say we're going to be joyfully simple, but their promise is delivered on every single time. Mm-hmm. And that is fine. They have lots of customers, right? And I would argue if you're a joyfully simple airline to deal with, you would have lots of customers too, if you were consistently delivering on it. So back to that promise, don't make it something you can't deliver on. Start where you can deliver and build on it over time.
Jason, I love the idea of that credo that you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. A one-pager, pocket size, just something that you, your team, your employees, your customers understand. And I feel like it's a powerful symbol because it means so much more than the words that are on it. It's what it stands for. It's how you feel when you can, throw it down at Ritz-Carlton as an example, when you get it in the mail as part of your onboarding with a new client, with a new service. Do you have examples, or do you have maybe examples is a bad choice of words. Do you have an idea of how a company could create a sample credo for their own services?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's simple. But having said that, it's taken me months in every company to do it. So it all starts with your promise. So the first step is your promise. What do you promise? So at Volkswagen here in Australia, we called it our difference. What's going to be the Volkswagen difference? And that was, at Volkswagen, we take pride in everything we do so that our customers can be proud of their choice. You'll note the use of pride or proud in that is quite emotive. To be proud of something, you have to have an emotional connection to it. I would challenge you that your promise needs to be human, so it needs to have some level of emotion in it. And then we talked about, okay, what are the things that sit underneath that? How do we make someone proud of their experience or proud of their choice? And so we decided that you have to make it simple. Convenience is important, but simplicity is gold. And so if we're going to make it simple, we're going to make it personal. Someone can't have an emotional connection to you if you treat them like a number. So we want them to be proud of their choice, so we want them to feel part of the process. And then we want to make it happen. Big organizations love bureaucracy. So if we can get out of the way of our own bureaucracy so the customer's not impacted or the employee, then we believed that that would be something to be proud of. Proud to deliver and proud for the customer that they chose us. And then we went a next step further and said, okay, let's just get really simple. Every single customer, every single prospect, what do we have to do as a bare minimum? What's table stakes, if you like? And so we said that we've got to greet every customer. We have to guide every customer on their journey, and we have to show genuine gratitude to every customer. Now, all of that is on a pocket card that it's threefold. It's 3 or 4 inches by 3 or 4 inches. So it's not it's not this War and Peace document. It's really high level. If I read to you greeting, it says we greet every customer with respect and friendliness. Everyone can get that. You don't need a science degree to understand what that means. But we developed this by getting people from sales and from the call center and from marketing and in this particular instance from some of our agencies, and we thrashed out all the different words that you could think of, and what was the pro or the con of using those. At one stage, we make it personal was going to be we make it human, and then there was a great debate. Is that robotic? Funny enough, saying we make it human, does that feel robotic, right? And so I think the key to building it out is involve the business, involve your team, and challenge it. But what you're trying to do is really distill it down to you'll notice that there's 3 things that we promise to achieve our difference. There's 3 basic things that we have to do with every customer. People can remember 3s. It's a really powerful tool. And then that layers up into what we termed our difference, which Carlton calls their credo. Other companies call it their manifesto. It doesn't matter what you call it, right? But the power of that simplicity is what you do with it next. So let me explain. When you say that you're going to deliver a level of experience that people can be proud to choose and that you're going to be proud to deliver, the moment as a manager you see someone delivering below that expectation, you can simply say, so tell me, is that something that you were proud of? And that starts a conversation, as opposed to step 45 of the customer service manual says you should have smiled for 33 seconds. Because that doesn't matter. We need to empower our people to have a real interaction with customers. Now, if you're a solopreneur, I do this in my own business. What is it that I'm going to do consistently? And I always encourage solopreneurs to have mentors. Bounce those ideas off mentors. I don't have, as a solopreneur, I don't have 5 corporate culture statements or 5 corporate values, because it's me. Right? I don't need a billboard or a poster in front of me to say that I value integrity. Of course I value integrity. But I also need, just like I have a business plan for how much revenue I'm going to have this year, I need a plan for what it is that I am going to do for customers, what I'm prepared to say yes to and what I'm not prepared to say yes to. So as a solopreneur, I say bring out the crayons, the whiteboard markers, the Post-it notes. and go, what is it that I want to be famous about? The Ritz-Carlton is famous for the way that they serve their ladies and gentlemen, and the fact that they even say the words ladies and gentlemen, and the consistency in which they deliver it. So what do I want to be famous for? Once you know that answer, you can build out those other things, because it goes from what do I want to be famous to, which I would say is your credo or your difference. Then what are the three things I need to do to deliver on that? And then what are the three things that are the entry stakes, the table stakes to getting those things right? Now, you can't be personal if you're not prepared to smile and say hello. You can't make things happen if you don't respect people, because you won't care whether you make things happen or not. So, just keep it simple. Think about your greatest experience and your worst experience. What do you love and hate about both of those? There's a book by a gentleman by the name of Roger Dooley. It's called Friction. And he talks about needing to remove friction from the customer's experience, and I would say from the employee experience as well. And ultimately, that book is saying, what are you prepared to make happen in an effortless way for customers? And what aren't you? There may actually be times where more friction is better because of what you're selling, or the cost involved in providing it might mean that, friction adds a layer of qualification for customers. But that friction shouldn't be frustrating. Equally, making something simple and dumb is not necessarily a good thing. The self-service checkouts at supermarkets, I revolted against those things for a long time, because my groceries didn't get cheaper.
Right.
Now, rationally, I know that that's a silly statement to make, but for a long time I revolted against them. But there's so many of them, and it's faster. I use them now. Every single time I scan my loyalty card, I get reminded that they made something simple but dumb. They know how I pay every single time I buy something at their store, because they track it with my loyalty card. Yet the very next question they ask me after swiping my loyalty card, and I haven't found a supermarket that has solved this problem yet, but every time I swipe that loyalty card, the next question is, how would you like to pay? You know how I pay. Just go straight to that payment method. Give me an option to get out of that payment method if I, for whatever reasons, decided to use cash. But don't make something so simple it's dumb and actually detracts from the experience you're trying to deliver. Make it convenient. Shep Hyken wrote a book around convenience as well, and ultimately it's about making things easy for customers to have success and being true to what you promised. So I'm a big believer that the promise, though, has to work for both customers and employees. Because you can't be promising to employees that they're going to have, cocktails at 3 every day, if you're saying to customers at 5 o'clock you're going to have sober, focused employees, right? So there has to be some joining of the two, and I say they're the same thing. I want my team members to be proud that they chose to work for me, and that they're doing work that they can be proud of. Just like I want customers to be proud of their choice as well. So, I would say that the first step is just challenging yourself about what you want to be famous for.
I love that. It's such a simple statement, yet so powerful if implemented and used the right way. Jason, the last part I'd love to take this conversation is, you mentioned that products are a part of the experience equation. Mm-hmm. And I would love to dive deeper into that. Tell me what you mean by that. Tell me how products can be a greater part of the experience equation. And is it also, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, but is there an opportunity for services and service-based companies to start thinking about products for their own customer satisfaction, for their own delivery of their scope?
Absolutely. Think about SaaS companies. My accounting platform is a SaaS product. The days of getting it on floppy disks are, well, for that company never existed, but it's a SaaS product. I, in a perfect world, should never have to deal with them. I should never have to ring them to say, how do I use your product? I'm sure there's someone in their offices going, the cost of servicing customers in our call center. Most service companies, most SaaS companies want to be lean in that area, which I understand. But their product, which is their accounting platform, I interact with every day. So the product experience in this example is about how do they make that user experience one that is frictionless, one that actually makes me feel that I made the right choice, not the dumb choice or the popular choice. Now, my accounting software is here it's a global product, but here in Australia, it's become almost the de facto accounting software for many small business, medium businesses. And there is some stuff that it does which is just dumb. I could do it in Google Docs better. So some of the things. Those frustration points are where I think the product experience has let them down, because they've built a product, but they haven't asked the next question. The software receives a transaction that it's not aware of. Well, okay, that should be fairly easy to reconcile. Oh, hang on, there's 3 extra buttons I need to press. Why are there 3 extra buttons? Now, the engineer was probably told there's going to be instances where money will flow into the account and we need to be able to reconcile that. So he or she went off and created a solution, but then no one said, hang on, what's the experience that this solution is delivering? Is it the simplest? Is it the easiest? Is it logical? And let's just say they're asking those questions and the engineer says, well, it's not really logical from the user perspective, but because of coding that we've done here, and here, there's no way we can ship this product or this feature set, next week. We'd need to rewrite, 3 other pieces of code, and it would take us months and what have you. You can still ship the product, even if it is, not logical. But I would say the product experience in that example would be someone saying, okay, we need to have a pop-up that explains the steps. We need to make it happen for the customer. So if it's not logical, guide them through the path. Make it simple for them to get success. It's one of the things I talk about in the book. The very first thing customers and employees want to achieve is success. No one goes to do business with you because they want to fail. Right? So if something's not logical, if something is complicated, find a way to guide them through it so the frustration is diminished to a certain extent. You think about Expedia, probably the world's most known online travel company. Mm-hmm. Expedia is a services business. When you think about it, they're selling someone else's product. They facilitate payment. They're providing you an online travel agent experience. They used to have, I'm sure they still do have a marketing department, but they used to have a marketing department whose KPIs were get people to the website to buy. And they had a call center whose KPIs were answer X number of calls in 30 seconds, and for every call to take no more than, say, 90 seconds. Just example numbers. Expedia hasn't shared with me their KPIs. Someone at Expedia went, both these organizations are great. That marketing team, the departments are great. The marketing team, they did this campaign and there was 50,000 people that bought, a weekend in Toronto. And someone looked at the call center and said, oh, they're doing great. 99% of their calls are done and dusted in 45 seconds. Thankfully, eventually, someone stepped back and said, this is broken. Because of those 50,000 customers that our marketing team made a promise to and who ultimately bought something, 40,000 of them had to ring the call center after they made a purchase because they didn't understand something.
Wow, isn't that fascinating?
So if you have that one unifying promise, and look, I think Expedia is a great company, but they're a great company because they're prepared to step back and go, hang on, at a silo level, these things are working, but at a customer promise level, at a customer experience level, at a product experience level, this is broken and we need to change it. So their goal became, how can we still get those 50,000 customers to buy our product, but what's next? And what next was causing all the pain. So they built into their online experience the steps, the communication flows, everything required to turn those customers into advocates as opposed to people sitting on a call waiting to connect to an agent. Now, of course, they still have customers call them and things go wrong, but it's much better to sell to 50,000 customers and have 1,000 people call you than to sell to 50,000 and have 40,000 call you. And that couldn't have happened at Expedia or any other company if there wasn't this overarching vision of what the experience would look like and the willingness to look at the product experience. The product experience is absolutely vital in the world. You think about, for most people, it's the product they interact with every day or more, more frequently than your service team.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So again, I can't tell you whether my Samsung fridge is how many gallons or liters of milk it can hold. I have no idea. But I know that it's a Samsung fridge and it's been reliable. And it's why I buy, if I, at some point I need a new fridge, it will be another Samsung, most likely. And it will be from the company that sold it to me because of the experience, right? So that company is selling the experience and their product is the experience, the promises that they deliver. It's not the fridge. The fridge is Samsung's product. And for Samsung, they're not a B2C for the most part. They're not a B2C direct sales. And I know you probably can go to their website in some countries and buy, but for the most part, they're B2B. So for B2B, their product is everything. Because if my experience with their product is crap, then I'm not going to go and buy it again. And they don't. Samsung should care, but probably don't care where I buy their products from, as long as I buy their products.
Right.
And so their product experience is everything from a physical point of view. I would argue software is just as important as the physical product in that experience. A good friend of mine and someone that used to work for me has just recently changed companies. And we were talking and I said, oh, you really need to do something about this situation that you have at your new company. And he said, yeah, I'm going to buy this enterprise software platform. And I said, are you going to look at anyone else? And he went, no, why would I? I used them in the old company. I loved them. Why would I look at anyone else? And that's a software hosted in the cloud. And I would argue, I love the product as well, but I would argue there's probably 3 or 4 other people that have that.
For sure.
The product is what people interact with more frequently than your service offering. It has to be considered in the experience that you deliver.
Dude, that's incredible. You just really wrapped it all home with that statement. Jason, I've got 3 final questions to kind of bring this episode to a close. But before I do that, where is the best place for people to find you, learn more about you, and stay up to date as to what you're working on?
Sure, fantastic. Thank you. So if people visit jasonsbradshaw.com/sign up, they'll be able to sign up for my newsletter, also be able to get the first 2 chapters of my book with my compliments, and connect with me on all the other channels on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Jason S. Bradshaw. Now, the reason I keep emphasizing the S in the middle there, Jason S. Bradshaw, is because if your listeners just put in Jason Bradshaw, they'll end up with a California real estate company. And unless they're looking for their perfect beachside property, I would suggest they put the S in. So that's jasonsbradshaw.com. And as a thank you to your listeners, they'll get the first 2 chapters of my book with my compliments.
Dude, incredible. Thank you for sharing that. We'll definitely link that in the notes, of course. My first question, Jason, is what are you most excited about in the next 60 days?
That's a brilliant one. The next 60 days, hey? Well, what I am really excited about is in the next 60 days, I'm launching a new product myself. So I'm launching a new virtual executive coaching program, which is all about helping solopreneurs and businesses grow and get ready for 2021. I think 2021 is not going to be like 2019. It definitely won't be like 2020, but it's going to be new again. So trying to help entrepreneurs really get intentional about how they're going to turn 21 into a growth year for them. So that's in the next 60 days that launches. And there's equal parts excitement and equal parts fear because there's a lot of work to do before we get to the launch.
But we can assure you that your clients will not be getting Jason swag. It'll be something else.
No, I'm going to. There won't be any Jason S. Bradshaw caps going out.
Good. Jason, outside of your own book, which of course we'll link up as well, are there books that have shaped you, books that you find yourself revisiting, any books you'd recommend for entrepreneurs or business owners?
Look, I was just looking at my Kindle the other day, and I have something like 1,000 business books in my Kindle. I'm going to say I'm a massive reader, but the truth is I probably am a massive listener, because if it's on audiobook, I'll listen to it more than read it. I can multitask that way. One of the books that I would certainly recommend to people is a book by the gentleman with the name of Scott McKain. He wrote a book called The 7 Tenets of Taxi Terry. And it just distills the power of delivering an intentional experience repeatedly. Taxi Terry is a taxi driver in Jacksonville, Florida, who went from running and owning his own taxi cab to providing a complete mobility solution in the good town of Jacksonville, and having the grace and the pleasure, I'm going to assume the pleasure, of being the designated driver for the former president, Mr. Bill Clinton. So his story is remarkable, and and in Scott's book, he talks about the 7 things that Taxi Terry did to go from a single taxi cab to now a fleet of taxi cabs, limousines, coaches, et cetera, et cetera. So I would certainly recommend that book. The other book that I would encourage people to look at is John Ruhlin's Giftology book. And not everyone's going to have a gifting budget in their organization. After reading his book, you might think you need one. But the reason I'm recommending it is actually because of intentionality. John's book is all about intentionality. And I think that that's so powerful. I had the great honor to share. I was a speaker at an event that Oprah Winfrey also got to speak at. And let's face it, she didn't ring them up to ask to speak. I'm pretty sure she got the call from them. And she spent 15 minutes explaining how her life has been achieved through intentionality. And if you have the privilege of seeing any of the stuff she's written about that, I cannot agree more. You do stuff with intention and you'll achieve it. Now, it starts by writing down the dream and then building out the plan with intention to get there. And the giftology will absolutely send to home the power of being intentional. Now, whether that's about gifting or anything else, there's that book. And I'm just looking over here to my bookcase, and the other book that I would mention is The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. And again, the reason I would recommend that book is it just reinforces that you don't have to get everything right, and not everything needs to be, completely frictionless or done in a blink. But it's about getting the peak moments that create memories right. And I think if you read all three of those books, you can't help but improve. Read any one of those books and you will improve. All three, you'll have work for a year.
I'm on my second time reading Giftology because it was such an easy to read book, and I'm just rereading it. And The Power of Moments, I've read that once last year. I have it on my desktop right now. I still remember the popsicle hotline story in that book.
Yeah.
It talks about this hotel in, I don't know where, but pretty like average size hotel, like typical reviews here and there, same price point, nothing extravagant, except they had this popsicle hotline. Yeah. And it consistently got there's this phone there, you pick up the phone, the concierge answers it, you're getting a popsicle. And then with white glove treatment, like in the movies, they find you in the hotel, bring you this popsicle, like and display it in this beautiful 5-star Courseway, I'm sure. And the amount of reviews this hotel has just because of the popsicle hotline is incredible.
So because of that book, at an event that I hosted a number of years ago now, but because of that book, I created a popsicle hotline at the conference. And so when anyone picked it up, there was a server come out in a tuxedo, white gloves, silver platter, and they would serve popsicles. Now, I don't usually serve desserts, certainly not popsicles, at a conference. I did it because it reinforced a point, but it was more popular than anything else. Well, maybe not more popular than the wine at night, but it was super popular. And beyond popular, it was a talk trigger. Jay Baer released a book, I think it was last year, called Talk Triggers, and for the Magic Castle, their popsicle is that talk trigger. It's a on-purpose action that they can repeat consistently that creates word of mouth. Jay's book Talk Triggers is another one I would recommend. There are so many great books out there with absolute gold in them. And whether it's one of the ones that I recommended or, I could keep recommending books for different reasons, the challenge I give to your listeners is do something. Don't just read the book and put it on the shelf. You might as well save yourselves $24.99 and gone and bought some popsicles. Do something with it, even if it's only one thing. James Clear has a book called Atomic Habits. He talks about the power of being 1% better every day. Just do something every day to get better, no matter how small. If you read 7 Tenets of Taxi Theory, you don't have to do all 7 tomorrow. Just start doing one of them. It will make a difference.
I love that, Jason. I've got one more question. And by the way, I implemented a candy hotline at an event in Denver last year. And some of my best friends from the entire 3-day conference came from the candy hotline. And it still gets talked about to this day. And it was last year. But anyways, just on that note, totally relate and resonate with that.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Last question, Jason. Tomorrow morning, the entire world wakes up. Every city, every country, every continent wakes up tomorrow morning, opens up their bedroom blinds, and they're looking at a billboard. And everybody's looking at the exact same billboard, whether you're in Australia or Toronto. Everyone's looking at the exact same billboard, except tomorrow, Jason gets to write the message on the billboard for the entire world to see. What message would you share with the world?
Do one thing today to make someone else's life better.
Do one thing
Could
today
you imagine a
to
world?
make someone's life better. I love it.
Could you imagine a world where everybody every day tried to do something for someone else just because they wanted to make their life better?
It's powerful.
I'd argue there'd be a few less wars in the world.
Man, I've got a big smile on my face because that was so beautifully said. Jason, this has been such an incredible conversation. I just want to thank you for getting up early. I know it's a little bit earlier for you than it is for me, and just blessing me with your expertise, your knowledge for the last 60 minutes. This is going to be super powerful. And just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful that I met you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate that we're able to make it happen.